I had been with Jessica for 3 years, and our life in Seattle felt like a dream. My IT job paid well, we had a cozy apartment downtown, and I was even saving for an engagement ring. That all changed when Jessica casually mentioned wanting an open relationship over dinner. She smiled, saying it would help us grow as individuals. I felt my stomach twist, but after weeks of discussion, I reluctantly agreed. What could possibly go wrong? Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever had to make a difficult decision in your relationship. I met Jessica at a tech networking event in downtown Seattle 3 years ago. I was presenting a new software platform, and she asked the most insightful questions during the Q&A session. Her intelligence immediately caught my attention, but it was her laugh that made me work up the courage to ask for her number. Jessica was stunning with her auburn hair and green eyes, but what truly drew me in was her confidence and quick wit. Our relationship moved quickly. Within 6 months, we were practically inseparable. We would spend weekends hiking in the mountains outside Seattle, or exploring hidden restaurants in neighborhoods neither of us had visited before. After a year, we decided to move in together. We found a 2-bedroom apartment with a view of Elliott Bay that we both fell in love with. I took the second bedroom as my home office, and everything just worked. Our routines complemented each other perfectly. I would wake up early to go for a run while Jessica preferred sleeping in. Evenings were spent cooking together, or watching documentaries that we would passionately debate afterward. I thought about proposing nearly every day. I had even started looking at rings and planning how I might ask her father for his blessing. Jessica was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, and I genuinely believed we would spend our lives together. The first signs of change were so subtle I nearly missed them. Jessica began mentioning friends from her graduate program who were in open relationships. "Did you know Amanda and Tyler see other people? They seem really happy with their arrangement," she would say casually over breakfast. I would nod, not thinking much of it. Then came the comments about monogamy being a social construct, or how humans were not naturally monogamous. These conversations became more frequent, but I dismissed them as intellectual exercises. Jessica had always enjoyed philosophical debates. Her social circle began to shift as well. She started hanging out with a new group from her art history program. In particular, she became close with Natalie, a photographer whose work focused on modern relationships. Jessica would come home from evenings with Natalie, full of new ideas and perspectives that increasingly centered on the limitations of traditional relationships. "Do you ever feel restricted by being with just one person?" she asked me one night as we were getting ready for bed. The question caught me off guard, and a knot formed in my stomach. "Not really," I answered honestly. "I love what we have." She smiled, but there was something in her eyes that made me uneasy. "I love what we have, too. I just wonder if there is more we could experience." These conversations continued for weeks, and each time the knot in my stomach grew tighter. I tried to be understanding, to listen openly to her ideas, but I could not shake the feeling that something fundamental was shifting between us. Then came the night that changed everything. We had just finished dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant. Jessica seemed nervous throughout the meal, checking her phone more than usual and barely touching her pasta. When we got home, she asked if we could talk. "Fred, I have been thinking a lot about us." She began, sitting across from me, on our couch. "I love you so much, and I want our relationship to continue growing." I smiled, relieved that this seemed to be heading in a positive direction. "That is why I want to suggest opening our relationship." The words hit me like a physical blow. Even though she had been hinting at this for weeks, hearing her actually propose, it made my heart race uncomfortably. "We would have rules, of course," she continued, not seeming to notice my reaction. "Complete honesty about who we see. Safe sex always. No emotional attachments. It would just be about exploration and growth." "Jessica, I do not know if I can do that," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just think about it," she pleaded. "This is not about there being anything wrong with us. It is about expanding our experiences. We are still young, Fred. Do we really want to limit ourselves?" Over the next week, we had multiple conversations about what an open relationship would look like. Each time I expressed my reservations, and each time Jessica assured me that this would make our relationship stronger. I loved her so much, and the thought of losing her terrified me more than the thought of sharing her. Eventually, I agreed, convincing myself that perhaps this was simply a phase that would pass. A month into our new arrangement, I noticed Jessica texting more frequently with someone named Kyle. When I asked about him, she casually mentioned he was a teaching assistant in one of her graduate courses. Something about the way she avoided eye contact when discussing him made my suspicions grow. One evening, while Jessica was in the shower, her phone lit up with a message from Kyle. I had never invaded her privacy before, but something compelled me to look. The message read, "Last night was amazing. Cannot wait to see you again tomorrow." When Jessica got out of the shower, I confronted her with what I had seen. She was initially defensive, accusing me of violating her trust by checking her phone. Eventually, she admitted that she had been interested in Kyle before suggesting we open our relationship. "You already knew you wanted to be with him when you proposed this arrangement?" I asked, feeling a deep sense of betrayal wash over me. "I was attracted to him, yes," she admitted. "But that is the whole point of an open relationship, Fred. We can explore these attractions instead of suppressing them." We had our first major argument that night. I felt manipulated and deceived. If she had been honest about her interest in Kyle from the beginning, would I have agreed to open our relationship? Probably not, and I think she knew that. In the end, Jessica tearfully apologized for not being completely forthcoming. She promised to be more transparent moving forward, and reassured me that what she had with Kyle was purely physical. I was hurt but still in love with her, so I decided to try and move past it. Looking back, I should have recognized this as the red flag it was, but love has a way of blinding us to the obvious. Natalie had been a frequent visitor to our apartment since becoming friends with Jessica a few months earlier. She was Jessica's classmate in their graduate art history program, and had quickly become a fixture in our lives. At first, I paid little attention to her, seeing her simply as Jessica's friend and nothing more. Natalie was different from Jessica in almost every way. Where Jessica was polished and deliberate, Natalie was spontaneous and unfiltered. Her short blonde hair often looked like she had just rolled out of bed, and she usually wore vintage band t-shirts and worn jeans. As a professional photographer, she had an eye for details that most people missed, which made her conversations surprisingly insightful. Our first real connection happened when Jessica was busy preparing for a presentation and asked me to entertain Natalie while she worked. Reluctantly, I showed Natalie my vinyl collection, expecting her to be politely disinterested. Instead, her eyes lit up when she saw my original pressing of Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. "No way. This is my favorite album of all time," she exclaimed, carefully examining the record. "My dad raised me on this music." We spent the next 2 hours discussing classic rock bands, discovering we shared a passion for music that Jessica had never particularly cared about. We also realized we both loved old foreign films, another interest Jessica did not share. By the end of the evening, I found myself genuinely enjoying Natalie's company, something I had not expected. As our relationship shifted to an open one, Jessica began spending more and more time with Kyle. At first, it was just one evening a week, but soon she was seeing him 3 or 4 nights, coming home late with a glow that made my heart ache. She would give me perfunctory details as per our agreement, but there was an enthusiasm in her voice when talking about Kyle that had long been absent when she talked about our relationship. While Jessica was out with Kyle, I found myself alone in our apartment, trying to distract myself from imagining what they might be doing together. I threw myself into work, often staying at the office later than necessary just to avoid the empty apartment. One evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Natalie. "Heard Jessica is out again tonight. Want to grab a beer? No one should drink alone on a Friday." I hesitated before responding. Was this appropriate? But then again, Jessica was out with another man, so surely having a drink with her friend was harmless in comparison. I agreed, and we met at a small pub near my office. The conversation flowed easily as we shared stories from our childhoods and discussed our career aspirations. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely seen and heard. Natalie asked questions about my work that showed real interest, unlike Jessica, who had lately seemed to tune out whenever I discussed my projects. "So how are you really doing with this whole open relationship thing?" Natalie asked after our second round of beers. The directness of her question caught me off guard. "I am adjusting," I said carefully. "That is a diplomatic answer," she said with a knowing look. Jessica talks about how great it is all the time, but I have always wondered how you felt about it. Did she tell you it was my idea? I asked suddenly, curious about how Jessica was portraying our arrangement to others. Natalie looked surprised. Actually, yes. She mentioned it was something you had wanted for a while. The revelation stung. Not only was Jessica spending most of her time with another man, but she was also lying to her friends about whose idea it had been. I felt a flash of anger quickly followed by a deep sadness. It was completely her idea. I said quietly. I agreed because I was afraid of losing her. Natalie reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I figured as much. For what it is worth, I think she is making a huge mistake. You are a good guy, Fred. That night marked a turning point in my friendship with Natalie. We began texting regularly, mostly about music and films, but occasionally about deeper topics. She became my confidant, the person I could talk to about my growing unhappiness in my relationship with Jessica. A few weeks later, I discovered that Jessica had lied about working late. I had stopped by her campus to surprise her with dinner, only to learn from a classmate that she had left hours earlier with Kyle. When I called her, she claimed to be in the library, the background noise clearly manufactured. The betrayal cut deep. Not the fact that she was with Kyle, but that she felt the need to lie about it despite our open arrangement. I called Natalie that night, my voice shaking with hurt and anger. She listened patiently, as I poured out my feelings, never once saying I told you so, or judging me for staying in a relationship that was clearly causing me pain. Come over, she said simply. I will make that terrible instant hot chocolate you like, and we can watch a bad movie until you feel better. Sitting on Natalie's worn couch wrapped in a blanket and watching the room for its unintentional comedy, I realized I had developed feelings for her. It wasn't just that she was attractive, though she certainly was, but that she made me feel valued in a way Jessica hadn't in months. With Natalie, I could be fully myself without fear of judgment or rejection. These feelings confused and frightened me. Was I just vulnerable because of the problems with Jessica? Was I seeking comfort in the first person who showed me kindness? I tried to push these thoughts aside, focusing instead on salvaging what remained of my relationship with Jessica. As if sensing my emotional withdrawal, Jessica began suggesting I should take advantage of our open relationship. You know, Fred, this arrangement works both ways, she said one morning over coffee. You should be exploring too. Maybe you would understand why this is so important to me if you tried it yourself. The suggestion felt like permission, but also like a challenge, as if she didn't believe I could attract someone else. Little did she know that thoughts of Natalie had been occupying my mind with increasing frequency. Everything came to a head when Jessica announced she would be spending the weekend with Kyle at his cabin on Lake Chelan. 3 full days together. This was no longer just physical exploration, but sounded like a romantic getaway. When I pointed this out, Jessica dismissed my concerns. We discussed this, Fred. Kyle and I enjoy each other's company. It does not mean I love you any less. But her words rang hollow. The woman packing an overnight bag for a weekend with another man seemed like a stranger to me, not the person I had planned to propose to just months earlier. After Jessica left, I sat alone in our apartment, feeling a mixture of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of liberation. On impulse, I texted Natalie, free tonight, could use a friend. Her response came immediately. Movie night at my place. I just got Casablanca on Blu-ray. Bring wine. That night at Natalie's apartment felt different from our previous hangouts. There was a tension in the air, an awareness of each other that hadn't been there before, or perhaps had always been there but we had both ignored. We sat closer than usual on her couch, our shoulders touching as Humphrey Bogart delivered his famous lines. The wine loosened our inhibitions and our conversation turned personal. Can I ask you something, Fred? Natalie said, turning to face me. The movie played Forgotten in the background. Anything, I replied, noticing how the soft lamplight made her eyes appear almost golden. Why do you stay with Jessica? It is so obvious that you are not happy. The question hung in the air between us. In that moment, I couldn't think of a single good reason. I guess I am afraid of what comes after, I admitted. We built a life together. Starting over seems terrifying. Sometimes the things that terrify us are exactly what we need, she said softly, her eyes holding mine. "What about you?" I asked. "Are you seeing anyone?" She smiled, a hint of sadness in her expression. "There is someone I have feelings for, but he is unavailable." "He is a fool, then," I said without thinking. "Is he?" she whispered, leaning slightly closer. The air between us seemed to crackle with electricity. I knew that if I kissed her, I would be crossing a line that could not be uncrossed. But in that moment, with Jessica miles away with another man, the line seemed arbitrary and hypocritical. "I have wanted to do this for so long." Natalie confessed, her hand gently touching my face. When our lips met, it felt like coming home after being lost for a very long time. That night with Natalie was nothing like I had imagined it would be. There was no guilt, no sense of wrongdoing, only a profound connection that went beyond the physical. We moved from the couch to her bedroom, the forgotten movie still playing in the background as we discovered each other in the dim light. Natalie's touch was gentle, but confident, her body fitting against mine, as if we had been together countless times before. Unlike with Jessica, where physical intimacy had become routine and predictable, every moment with Natalie felt new and electric. We took our time exploring and learning what pleased each other, talking and laughing between kisses. "I have thought about this more times than I care to admit," Natalie whispered as she traced patterns on my chest afterward. "Really?" "Since when?" I asked, genuinely surprised. She propped herself up on one elbow, her expression suddenly serious. "Since the first day Jessica introduced us. There was something about you, your kindness, the way you listened, when I talked about my photography. Most guys zone out after 30 seconds. Why did you never say anything?" "You were with Jessica," she said simply. "I do not go after my friends' boyfriends. But then this open relationship thing happened, and I saw how it was hurting you, and I just—" She trailed off. "You, just what I prompted. I just could not stand watching her take you for granted anymore." Natalie's honesty was refreshing. There were no games, no hidden agendas, just raw truth. As the night deepened, we talked about our situation. This wasn't just physical attraction. We both knew it was something more substantial, yet the complications were undeniable. "What are we going to do about Jessica?" Natalie finally asked the question we had both been avoiding. "I need to be honest with her," I said, feeling a newfound resolve. "Open relationship or not, she deserves to know how I feel, how we feel." Natalie nodded, but her expression was worried. "She is not going to take this well, Fred. I know Jessica better than most people. She wants freedom for herself, but I am not sure she ever imagined you would actually connect with someone else." Her words proved prophetic. The next morning, as we lay in bed discussing whether we should get breakfast, my phone exploded with notifications. Jessica had returned from her weekend early and was frantically trying to reach me. "Fred, where are you? I came home early to surprise you. Call me back." Then, "Are you okay? I am getting worried." And finally, "Your car is not at work. Where the hell are you?" I showed the messages to Natalie, who bit her lip nervously. "You should call her," she said quietly. I stepped onto Natalie's small balcony to make the call, my heart pounding. Jessica answered immediately. "Fred, where have you been?" "I have been worried sick." "I am fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I stayed at a friend's place last night." There was a pause. "Which friend?" Her tone had shifted from concerned to suspicious. I took a deep breath. We had agreed to honesty in our open relationship, however, one-sided it had been until now. "I am at Natalie's." The silence that followed was deafening. When Jessica finally spoke, her voice was ice cold. "You are with Natalie." "My Natalie, Jessica." We agreed. "I am coming over there right now." She interrupted and hung up. I walked back inside, my face clearly showing my distress. "She is coming here," I told Natalie, who had already started getting dressed. "I figured she would," she replied, her voice calm, but her hands shaking slightly as she buttoned her shirt. "Fred, whatever happens, remember that we have not done anything wrong according to the rules she created." Less than 20 minutes later, Jessica was pounding on Natalie's door. When Natalie opened it, Jessica pushed past her, her eyes scanning the apartment until they landed on me. "Are you sleeping with her?" she demanded, her voice cracking with emotion. "Yes," I answered truthfully. "But Jessica, you are the one who wanted an open relationship. You have been seeing Kyle for months. That is different, she shouted, tears forming in her eyes. Kyle is just. He is just. Just what Jessica Natalie interjected, her arms crossed defensively. Just sex. Because from where I am standing, you have been spending more time with him than with Fred. You even lied about working late to be with him. Jessica's head whipped around to face Natalie. Stay out of this. This is between me and my boyfriend. The boyfriend. You have been neglecting while you explore your freedom. Natalie's voice was quiet but firm. Jessica turned back to me, her expression suddenly pleading. Fred, this is not what we agreed to. Natalie is my friend. There are boundaries. You never mentioned that my partners had to be approved by you, I pointed out. In fact, you encouraged me to see other people. Not her, Jessica cried, pointing at Natalie. Anyone but her. Why does it matter who it is? I asked, genuinely confused by her reaction. You said our arrangement was about physical exploration without emotional attachment. That is what you have with Kyle, right? Jessica's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw real pain in her eyes. It is more complicated than that, she whispered. Is it because you never actually thought I would find someone else? The question had been gnawing at me for weeks. Did you suggest opening our relationship because you thought I would never take advantage of it? Jessica's silence was all the confirmation I needed. You should know, Natalie said quietly, that Jessica told me the open relationship was your idea, Fred. She told everyone that. I felt a surge of anger at this revelation. Is that true? Jessica's face flushed with shame. I did not want my friends thinking I was the one who wanted to see other people. So you lied about me. Instead, I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. Jessica, this whole thing has been built on lies from the beginning, hasn't it? Jessica's composure finally broke completely. Through her tears, she admitted the truth I had suspected. For months, I was already sleeping with Kyle before I suggested opening our relationship. It had been going on for weeks. The admission should have hurt more than it did, but I felt oddly numb. Perhaps part of me had known all along. You said you would never find anyone else, Jessica continued almost accusingly. You said you were not interested in other women. You said you only wanted me. I did only want you, I replied, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. Until you showed me exactly how little that meant to you. Natalie, who had been watching our exchange with quiet intensity, finally spoke up. Jessica, you have talked about Fred behind his back for months. You told me he was boring in bed. You complained about his career ambitions. You even made fun of the way he dresses when he was not around. Each revelation was like a knife to my heart, but also a confirmation that ending this relationship was the right decision. Jessica's face went from tearful to furious in an instant. You, bitch. You are supposed to be my friend. Friends do not let friends treat people the way you have treated Fred. Natalie replied calmly. He deserves better. Jessica lunged toward Natalie, but I stepped between them. That is enough, I said firmly. Jessica, I think you should leave. We can talk when you are calmer. This is not over, Jessica hissed as she grabbed her purse. At the door, she turned back, her eyes red, but her voice steady. When she gets bored with you too, do not come crawling back to me. The door slammed behind her, leaving Natalie and me in a silence, thick with emotion and unspoken words. After the explosive confrontation at Natalie's apartment, I needed time to process everything that had happened. Jessica's betrayal ran deeper than I had initially realized. Not just the affair with Kyle that predated our open relationship, but the systematic way she had undermined my confidence and portrayed me to others. For several days, Jessica alternated between angry texts, accusing me of betrayal, and tearful phone calls begging for reconciliation. Each message further confirmed that our relationship had become toxic and one-sided. We need to talk in person, I finally texted her after a week of reflection. I will come by the apartment tomorrow evening. Walking into what had been our shared home felt surreal. Jessica had clearly prepared for my visit. The apartment was spotless, candles were lit, and she was wearing the blue dress I had always loved on her. Fred, she said, moving to embrace me. I stepped back, maintaining distance between us. I am just here to talk, Jessica. Her face fell, but she nodded, gesturing for me to sit on the couch. I chose the armchair instead, needing the physical separation to maintain my resolve. I have been thinking a lot about us, I began carefully. About how we got here. Me too, she said eagerly. Fred, I made a terrible mistake. I got caught up in the excitement of something new, but what I have with you is real. We can fix this. I shook my head slowly. The issue is not that you wanted to see other people, Jessica. The issue is that you lied about it. You were already involved with Kyle when you proposed opening our relationship. You manipulated me, instead of being honest. I was afraid of losing you, she said, tears forming in her eyes. No, you were afraid of losing the security I provided, while you explored options that excited you more. I countered, surprised by my own clarity. You wanted to keep me as a safety net. That is not fair, she protested. Is it not? You told your friends the open relationship was my idea. You ridiculed me behind my back. You created rules that you never intended to follow yourself. Jessica's expression shifted from defensive to calculating. Is this about Natalie? Because whatever she told you, this is not about Natalie. I interrupted. This is about you and me, and the fact that our relationship has not been equal or honest for a long time. I love you, Fred, she said, her voice breaking. Does that not count for anything? I think you love the idea of me, reliable, stable Fred, who will always be there no matter how you treat him. But that is not love, Jessica. That is convenience. She moved from the couch to kneel in front of me, taking my hands in hers. Tell me what I need to do to fix this. I will do anything. For a brief moment, I remembered all the good times we had shared, the laughter, the dreams, the comfort of familiar love. But those memories were now tainted by the knowledge of her dishonesty. I am moving out, I said firmly. I have already found a new place. Her grip on my hands tightened. No, please. We can start over. I will stop seeing Kyle. We can close the relationship again. Whatever you want. The problem is that I do not trust you anymore, I admitted. And without trust, we have nothing. The reality of my decision finally seemed to hit her. Her pleading gave way to anger once more. This is about Natalie, isn't it? You are leaving me for her. No, I am leaving you for me, I said quietly. Because I deserve better than what this relationship has become. I stood up, gently extracting my hands from hers. I will come by next weekend to get the rest of my things. Please make sure you are not here. Jessica's final attempt to manipulate me came as I reached the door. She will never love you like I do, Fred. No one will ever love you like I do. I turned to look at her one last time. I hope not, I said simply, and walked out. The following weeks were a blur of logistics and emotions. I moved into a small but bright apartment closer to my office. The physical distance from our shared home helped create the emotional distance I needed to heal. Jessica's attempts to contact me continued, following a predictable pattern: anger, pleading, guilt trips, and eventually threats. I will tell everyone you cheated on me, she texted one night. I simply replied, tell them whatever you need to, and blocked her number. During this time, Natalie and I maintained contact, but deliberately slowed things down. We both recognized that jumping from one relationship to another would be a mistake, regardless of our feelings. I want to do this right. I told her over coffee one afternoon. I need time to process everything that happened with Jessica. And you deserve someone who comes to you whole, not broken. Natalie reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I am not going anywhere, Fred. We have time. Over the next few months, Natalie and I built a friendship that was deeper and more honest than anything I had experienced with Jessica. We talked about our fears, our dreams, our past relationships. She shared stories about growing up in a small town in Oregon, about how photography had saved her during her parents' divorce. I told her about my childhood in Virginia, about losing my father at 16, about my passion for building things that lasted. When we finally decided to date, officially 6 months after my breakup with Jessica, it felt like the natural progression of something that had been built on mutual respect and genuine connection. There is something we need to talk about, Natalie said one evening, as we walked along the waterfront. I want us to be completely clear about expectations and boundaries. Okay, I said, appreciating her directness. I believe in monogamy, she stated firmly. Not because of societal expectations or tradition, but because that is what works for me. I want to be with someone who feels the same way. I smiled, relieved by her words. After everything that happened with Jessica, I could not agree more. I want a relationship built on trust and commitment and communication, she added. We need to be able to talk about problems before they become disasters. Absolutely, I agreed. No more lies or manipulation even when the truth is uncomfortable. The pain of Jessica's betrayal gradually faded as I built a new life, one that was more authentic and fulfilling than what I had lost. I discovered that the relationship I had thought was perfect had actually been limiting my growth in subtle ways. With Natalie, I felt challenged to become a better version of myself, not because she demanded it, but because she inspired it. 1 year after the dramatic end of my relationship with Jessica, I ran into Kyle at a coffee shop downtown. The encounter was awkward but illuminating. Look, man, he said, shifting uncomfortably. I just want you to know that Jessica was not honest with me either. She told me you two had already broken up when we started seeing each other. His revelation was the final piece of the puzzle, confirming what I had already come to understand. Jessica's manipulation had extended to everyone in her life, not just me. Thanks for telling me, I said, genuinely grateful for the closure. I hope things worked out for you, he laughed dryly. They did not. She cheated on me too with her thesis advisor. Seems like a pattern. As I walked away from that chance encounter, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the painful lessons of the past year. What had seemed like the worst thing that could happen to me, the breakdown of a relationship I had believed was my future, had actually been the push I needed to find authentic happiness. The experience taught me that loving someone does not mean surrendering your self-respect or accepting dishonesty. It taught me that boundaries are not restrictions but foundations for healthy connections. Most importantly, it taught me that sometimes when a door closes, it is not the end of the journey but the beginning of a better path. Natalie and I are still together, building our relationship day by day, on a foundation of honesty, respect, and genuine affection. I do not know what the future holds for us, but I know that whatever comes, we will face it with integrity and open hearts. Sometimes when someone wants to open a relationship, they are really just opening the door for you to walk out, and sometimes that turns out to be the greatest gift they could give you. Have you ever experienced a situation where what seemed like the worst thing that could happen actually led to something better? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Share this video with someone who might need to be reminded that sometimes endings are just better beginnings in disguise. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve someone who chooses you completely, not just when it is convenient.